The following is a Big Sioux Media production.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of People of Big Sioux Media. We are super excited to have former Del Rapids resident and assistant athletic director at South Dakota State University, Jeff Holm, join us today. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here on People of Big Sioux Media.
Yes, you can tell we're all going through this COVID-19 thing together when you're super excited to talk with me.
No, we're always excited to talk to you. We wanted to bring you on, Jeff, for a couple different reasons. One is you're such a baseball guy. We wanted to talk a little baseball because baseball is going to be so different this summer. So first of all, let's talk about what are your thoughts on summer baseball here in the state of South Dakota?
Yeah, it's been interesting, hasn't it, to look at whether they're the different organizations regionally or nationally and see how people are adjusting to trying to get kids back safely. And oh yeah, we think we can. Oh, maybe not. Let's hold off. Let's pick this date, and by this date we'll have an answer. And then maybe 2 weeks later we need a couple more weeks. So it's been interesting, and it's not an easy thing. And anybody who's listening out there, it doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your knowledge or education is. This thing is just not very much fun. So, you know, even if you have different thoughts than someone else, it's just my hope that everybody can be kind to each other, because everybody's opinion is legitimate. And it, just because it's different than yours doesn't mean that it's wrong or right. But just try to be kind to each other. So back to the baseball thing, from things I've read, I'm certainly not an expert, but from things I've read, it appears that the transmission of COVID-19 is much less risky when you're outside, especially if there's a wind blowing and it can dissipate things quicker. And so baseball, I think, has a chance to be a really good activity. But we do have to pay attention to when you're in the dugout, are you too close to somebody? Make sure that you're not coughing, sneezing. If you have hand sanitizer, all those things that are out there, it's easier said than done. And especially for the younger crew, I think it's probably easier said than done. And so for coaches to remain diligent, coaches are unique and special people in and of themselves on any year. This year's probably going to be a little bit more spotlight on them just to try and just trying to get out there and play ball. And so my hope is that kids do get a chance to play baseball. My hope is that coaches and organizations do as much as they possibly can to keep everybody safe. I know it's just stating the obvious and what we've all heard, but sometimes it's not necessarily the young folks that will be as affected by it. But the disease that is, but it might be their parents or their grandparents or their aunt or their uncle, or and it's kids. Everybody needs to remember to be careful, not only for them but for the others around them.
You know, we've all coached 10 and under and 12 and under baseball, and we look at how difficult it is to even keep kids' attention there. Now we're gonna have to try and keep them 6 feet apart, and the concern, I know Mindak made a decision, right or wrong, and people are going to argue with it, but they didn't want to spread it community to community when you have a bunch of little kids, and you have limited diamonds and things like that. What are some advices that you think, as you've managed dugouts over the years, what would you do as a coach to help with that dugout problem?
It's a really good question, and I'm not necessarily sure that I'm the person to be asking any expert advice of that, although I do have some experience working with kids. Each set of kids and each set of teams is different, and same thing with parents. If you can get parents to help you, it certainly is going to be a good thing. But kids tend to do better when they have things right in front of them. There's a blue X right there. That's where the on deck batter is going to stand. There's a blue X right there with the number 3 on it. That's where the third person in the line is going to stand. Or there's putting Johnny, you're a J. This tape is where you're always going to be. And I've been just trying to think of little things like that you could do. And maybe you only have 3 kids in the dugout and 4 kids spread out along the fence, and you make some sort of game out of it. So they can be 10 feet away, but giggling at each other at the same time, because it is fun. Baseball is fun, and it's hard to suppress that sometimes. So I don't know if I have any answers. I do know that it's never easy to make decisions about leagues, especially in times like this, because there are so many different opinions. And so I'll go back to what I said earlier. Just right or wrong in your mind, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong in someone else's mind. And people just need to be kind about it, and remember that that people that are in roles to make decisions are trying to make the best decision for everyone, not necessarily the best decision for you in particular. And so that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow, and I totally understand it. But one thing that never gets old is being kind.
So when we talk about some of these kids, that haven't picked up a baseball since last year, and as I look back at some of my Facebook memories, we would be a week into the season already,
Yeah.
So kids have been thrown for a month already and gotten the bat swinging and stuff like that. Is there anything that you can think of that you've used over the years, or have told your players over the years that they could do on their own, to kind of get ready for this season that they haven't had
Yeah.
to do yet?
Sure. If you have a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad at home who is willing to go play catch with you, just play catch. Just go play catch. Have a little fun. Do a couple accuracy contests. So here's the glove, hit the glove. Just get that arm in motion so that the first time you're in a game, because we all know game speed's different than practice speed, so your arm doesn't go into shock or your legs don't go into shock. Or, Mom, Dad, can you go throw me batting practice? And of course, what you do is going to depend on the age of somebody, and holding their interests versus teaching them some things, versus trying to trick them into doing some things without them knowing it. So there's a variety of things. There's you can teach them to grip a ball correctly. You grip a ball like this. You got the horseshoe right there. You put your 2 fingers across it. If you're young, you can put 3 fingers across it, like this. And the point of that, it's a 4-seam fastball. When it comes off your hand, it's 4 seams, and so it goes straight to the base. Well, it's hard to get your hand like this every time. So if you sit at home, and I did this when I was in college still. You sit at home and just toss the ball up, don't look at it, and then find the grip. Toss it up, don't look at it, and find the grip. And you'll find out that every time you catch a ball, you're going to be putting your hand in that grip. Now that's as a position player. As a pitcher, this is an awesome time to be messing around with change-up grips. What feels most comfortable? Which way do you want to hold that grip? And there's all sorts of grips. You can Google those. Curveball, sliders. If you're old enough, change-up is a really good one for young kids too. You can start messing with that if you have a concrete wall in the garage, or a piece of plywood you can throw up against the garage, and you can throw a tennis ball into it without hurting anything, but grip it, or a baseball into it without hurting anything, but grip it and just get used to. The more comfort you have with it, the better. You can always do, especially if you're older, you can always do strength items, whether it be forearms, just simply squeezing things, forearms, or you can do, if you have dumbbells. If you don't have dumbbells, get a couple of backpacks, fill them up, and do curls and triceps and push-ups and sit-ups and dips. You can do all those things without much weight. There's always something that can be done. It's just a matter of whether you really want to do it or not.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've talked about here at Big Sioux Media, and we've talked to you over the years, both Matt and I have either coached with you or had kids that have played for you. And this is really why we brought you on today, is and you started it here with everybody be kind. And it's this power of positivity that you have. Anybody that knows you knows your power of positivity. I remember when Sam played for you one year, there was a kid that struggled. I think he struck out 30 some times in a row. And every time they walked into the dugout, the comment was, "You'll get them next time. You'll get them next time." Advice that you have for parents and coaches as we go through COVID and go through a baseball season or any sports season as it's coming up?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I appreciate you saying that about me. I certainly could probably point out several things, as my kids could point out several things that I did not do well while I was coaching. But I did always try to treat people with respect and kindness. One of the things that I realized early on is it doesn't matter if you're 10, it doesn't matter if you're 19, 26, 46. If you make a mistake in a baseball game, if you make a physical mistake, you weren't trying to. You don't need someone else telling you how bad that was. You just don't. And especially at the younger level, you know what? Here's no problem. How do you think you might have been able to do that better? Typically, they can come up with the answer on their own. And you go, yep, that's exactly right. Well, remind me at practice next time. And that's the tough part. If you don't have a lot of practices, then you have to try and sneak in a few drills before the game or after the game. But just keeping a smile on their face, keeping them loving the games, keeping their teammates excited about it, making sure their teammates are picking them up instead of pushing them down, which I think in the state of South Dakota, I see several bright examples of that all the time, of really awesome coaches with kids. Now, there's certainly things that you can improve upon, and there's sometimes if a young person is not behaving the way they're supposed to, then you might have to be a little bit more stern. But any type of physical mistake, they're generally not trying to make that physical mistake. So I always made a point of trying to be as kind as possible and positive as possible, knowing that they already knew they had messed up.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice for young coaches, for all coaches. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is we get into young coaches and they watch. Their mentors are usually Major League Baseball coaches or, college coaches and things like that. Advice you give to a young coach, especially dealing with not only players, but parents, dealing with umpires, that type of thing. Somebody that, most of our coaches are volunteers at the younger level. Advice that you would have for them.
Yeah, that's an important and good question. I would say never have confrontations or serious conversations either right before or right after a game, especially right after a game. That would be an important one. And then try to do your best to put yourself in the shoes of that young person or the parents. Everybody has their own types of things and challenges that they're dealing with on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and you may have no idea what's going on in those situations. So do your best to try and understand if there are issues or some things that they would like answered. Try and understand that, and then just again try to be kind. And now I know some listening to this would say, yeah, that's easier said than done, and I agree. It is easier said than done, especially if there's contentious situations where it's, hey, let's talk about this at a different time, and then for whatever reason, the people involved will not let it go. So in that situation, just do your best to remain calm. Try to get a meeting at a different time and maybe more people around so that there's more people to try and understand the situation. So it's not easy. Parents, my wife makes fun of me all the time because when I coached Little League and younger, I would try to send out an abundance of information. Anywhere from here's an example of the type of pants you can get to on Tuesdays and Thursdays, your practice is at this time. I will send a text on Monday to remind you, on Wednesday to remind you. I just tried to put everything down. A snack schedule, if there was a snack schedule, a website to check, tried to put everything down. And so then it can be referred to later if someone has a question, even though oftentimes it's much easier just to contact the coach. The reason Amy and I will laugh is, so when I would send these out, she typically would not read them, even though she was on the email. And then she'd ask me, where's the game tonight? And what would I do? Did you check your email? Oh, come on. You can just tell me where it's at. Well, so that's a running joke at our house, is the information's right there. Just check it. So I did try to give an overabundance of information just to make sure that people, whatever way was best for them, text, email, Facebook, whatever, they could work. And then just being on time, being communicative. That's a really important one. Being honest and being a good teammate. That works for a coach and a kid as well. And there's a number of layers to that one. And kids actually do a really good job when you ask someone, hey, we want you to be a good teammate. That's one of our top things, if not the top. Tell me what that means. They're really good at telling you what that means, and they kind of get into it a little bit. And coaches have to be good teammates too. We can't just be telling or asking kids to do something that we aren't going to be doing ourselves.
Great advice across the board here today with Jeff Holm, Associate Athletic Director at South Dakota State University. I want to thank you, Jeff, for joining us here today. You got the twin stuff up behind you there in the garage office, and you know, we're all waiting for Major League Baseball to get going here. It's
no, hey, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Anytime you want to come on, Jeff, anytime you got something you want to announce, we will be more than happy to put you on. Personally, for Matt and I, we both want to thank you for the time and effort you've put into Del Rapids baseball. The years you served on the board as a coach mentor, the year we had the tournament as an umpire mentor. I remember you and I down at the Diamond spending hours with our young umpires. So I want to thank you for the time that you put into Dell's baseball. It is very appreciative.
I appreciate your sentiments, but I received way more from Del Rapids players and parents in baseball than I could ever give back, and I'm blessed for it. I appreciate that. On a note of thanks, I wanted to thank you guys. I think I both a text, but wanted to thank you guys for your top 10 moments of Big Sioux Media. I thought it was a tremendous list, and it's not easy with all of the a couple of different high schools in town. You've got female sports, male sports. You've got all the things that you're dealing with, and I thought you did an awesome job.
You know, and we talked baseball. We looked at some baseball stuff that we had covered too, and we're just like, how do you know, we didn't put that on. We had a couple of Take Me Out to the Ball games that were really good, and we had, well, the year that the Legion team won the state tournament and the club team won, and it's just, we just didn't know how to narrow it. It was a process. It was, you know, somebody said, oh, that must have been pretty easy, and I'm like, no, that was pretty hard, you know.
So I have to imagine it was, but I enjoyed watching it. Thanks for doing it.
Well, we appreciate that as well. So again, we want to thank Jeff Holm for joining us here on the People of Big Sioux Media. We want to thank you for watching. Stay tuned for next week's edition. And everybody be out there, be safe. We know it's out there. Wash your hands. Stay safe in Del Rapids. Thank you.